Cool. Should we begin?
Let's do it.
Nice. Right. Thank you everyone for joining. This is the first Cryptio customer webinar, one of many. The topic of this presentation will be on reporting and monthly reconciliation. It will be led by Tremaine. Tremaine, would you like to do a quick intro on yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Ash. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Tremaine Hudson, Accounting Strategy Team Lead here at Cryptio. As Ash mentioned, I'm going to be going over sort of best practices when it comes to general month-end reporting and reconciliation. Thanks again. Welcome, everybody.
Cool. Cheers for that, Tremaine. So as some, if not most of you know, my name's Ash, leading the customer team here at Cryptio. Again, this is our first webinar, so at the end of it, feel free to shoot us some feedback so we can iterate and do the next one even better. Cool, got a few more new faces. Let's jump to what we'll be talking about. So as a agenda for the webinar, so we'll be diving into our new reporting suite. So we have the trial balance, rolled up ledger entries, asset roll forward, new transaction history, and a little sneak peek into what is coming sometime probably at the end of the quarter, if not early next quarter, as well as really a quick step guide, tips and tricks on how to do monthly reconciliation that will streamline your processes, an insight into Cryptio's support center, and a sneak peek into our new features such as our DeFi module, NFT module, NetSuite integration, and impairment. During the webinar, you'll have two opportunities to ask questions, so feel free to dive in and shoot away. Tremaine, over to you.
Thank you, Ash. So everybody, I'm gonna take over from here and do a quick walkthrough of just general best practices that we've been seeing a lot in industry on monthly reconciliation. Before I jump into that, I do want to point to our support center a little bit here. Ash is going to do a deeper dive, but essentially for all of the reports that I talk about today and in general, any questions you have, we have a updated support websites, which is just support.cryptio.co. And here, for example, if we go to our reports, we have a full suite of every report that is currently available in the product, as well as if you click in, so here, let's the asset roll forward, we give you a complete rundown of what the report is, what are the different use cases, how to access them, things like that. So just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention before we dive in. So focusing today on these four core reports, which are the trial balance, roll up ledger entries, asset roll forward, and transaction history report. So the reason why we actually picked these over all the other reports that we currently have available is we see these as essentially core to the accounting reconciliation process at month end. And this is based on a number of different aspects, one of which is the recent FASB guidance on requirements to make sure that all balances from an asset roll forward perspective are reconciled periodically, as well as all accounts that match with those balances should be reconciled periodically. Taking a step back from just the guidance side of things, we find that operationally there's a very good flow in using these four core reports as part of your reconciliation process, meaning at a very high level, using your asset roll forward and trial balances to get a quick snapshot of what are my current assets, what are my current liabilities, where do they sit, in what wallets, what sources, things like that. The general ledger report gives you a little more granularity in the context of what accounts have you mapped to each of these different activities, what revenue streams, what expenses, things like that, which equally impact the balances, but it gives you a little more insight into where this impact is coming from. And then finally, the most granular data you can have is the transaction history report, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, but it's a transaction level detail report that shows you every transaction within the period. And that essentially drives both your balance changes and all of your account activity in your ledger entries report. Just to give a little bit of a sneak peek into what our new reporting suite is going to look like as well in the context of these reports. So this quarter, we're actually doing a complete revamp, and all of our reports, as you can see, is going to have a little bit of color. The data is going to be streamlined a little bit better to make it more user friendly. Thinking about this from the context of today's presentation, the asset roll forward report, again, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, is geared to basically just show what are my current balances over a specific period of time. So let's say if you're doing a monthly reporting, how did my balance change from month to month? One of the things that we recommend here is making sure that as a part of your reconciliation process, you have both your prior months ending asset roll forward and your current months ending, because this check here of the change in balance is what we'll use as a central data point to compare to each of the other reports. And here you can see in our new revamped version, there's going to be a flow that includes what are the different accounts or mapped chart of accounts that affected this change. So when we talk about total unit deposits, where did these deposits come from? What operational streams? Is it mining, staking, trading, etc.? This is all going to be driven based on how you map and how you set up your workspace. So there's going to be a lot of flexibility there in terms of how you can control the data that you get. Following on from here, this is going to be a snapshot of our new general ledger report. And it's similar to the asset roll forward. You're going to have, this is going to be driven completely by how you map the accounts for all of the activity in your workspace. But the key here is when we compare the change in balances from your asset roll forward and you compare this to your activity in your general ledger, these should reconcile. So again, the core central data point here is looking at all your debits and credits for revenues and expenses for the period. And the net of this activity should also tie back to the net of your change in asset balances between your roll forwards. And one of the things that we really want to emphasize in this reconciliation process is just finding a core data point between each one and focusing on that as you reconcile each report. Finally, we have the transaction history report, which again, I'm sure most of you are familiar with, but we do have one interesting new data point here that I think is going to be very helpful for everyone. And it's what we're calling the book value impact column. And essentially what this does is it takes the overall cost inventory impact that every transaction has to your workspace by asset and by source. And one of the things that it does is it's able to consider things like, is this an internal transfer? If it is, we keep the same cost basis. If not, we'd use fair market value on this sale. It also considers, are there multiple assets within this transaction? So you may have a situation where you're swapping from one token to the next, and then you're also paying gas fees all within the same transaction. This column here basically aggregates all of the impact from a cost basis perspective and gives it to you for each transaction line. So the sum of this entire column should give you your entire change in inventory for the same period between your prior asset roll forward ending balance and your current asset roll forward ending balance. I'm going to jump back to our slide a little bit here because you might notice that we have a little thing down here that says reconciliation reporting pack. One of the new reports that we're actually going to be launching as well is a report that aggregates all of the reports that I mentioned before. And basically what we want to do is we want to give clients a really easy way to look at, does my activity for the period reconcile? Where do I see discrepancies? And having all of these reports sort of tied into one and then having a discrepancy tab that does that check for you just sort of streamlines that process as you go through your month-end reconciliations. So just to give a quick recap generally, and then I'll open it up a little bit for Q&A if anyone has any just general questions about the process for each report that you use. And we know that some clients, for different reasons, may have additional reports that they use as a part of their reconciliation process. The thing that we want to drive is that always try to find a central data point between each of these reports that you use to reconcile and correlate to the other. That's something that auditors, from conversations we've had and from what we've seen from guidance, is something that they really, really value when they look back at your work papers for the year. The second thing is having good documentation policies for each of these. And what this means is sort of documenting what is your accounting reconciliation process at the end of the period. What were the documents that you used? So let's say you go through your February 2023 reconciliation, you should be saving down all copies of all of these reports that you use and storing these somewhere. So come year end or come semi-annually, how often you do any sort of independent audit or independent review, you can easily just hand this over to someone and say, here's all of my documents that I use to reconcile all of my data for the period. And then they can go away, they can do whatever testing they need, but it gives a very strong sense of preparation on your side. And I think that gives a lot of comfort to whoever it is that's going to be reviewing your work and auditing from your side. The third thing is book value impact. Again, super, super cool data point that I think everyone should find a way to integrate into their accounting monthly reconciliations. Being able to aggregate all of that data from a transaction level view, I think, because it's so granular, it gives good insight into how each transaction impacted your workspace, and it is going to be super valuable, not just for yourself internally, but also externally if you need somebody to audit at a transaction level detail. And finally, it's just a complete overview, right? It's starting from very high level reporting, which is focused sort of in the trial balance and the asset roll forwards, and then moving down towards the most granular, which is the transaction level detail. We find that this is a really good workflow in general that helps people to have a sense of, okay, I've checked this, what haven't I missed, or what haven't I checked? And if there's a discrepancy, it gives you a better starting point as opposed to what we've seen in the past, where you can imagine it's crypto, there's so many transactions, and if something breaks, where do we even begin to look? Where do we think has an issue? What doesn't have an issue? So really, we just want to streamline that process for all of our clients as we sort of help to build best practice for the crypto accounting workflow. So from there, I'm going to open it up to any questions. I know I've just been talking for a long time, so would love to hear any sort of general feedback or anything. Or any questions as well. If there's anything that didn't seem clear or anything that you think would be valuable to add, please definitely share as well. Cool. If nothing, I think I'm gonna throw it back to Ash, who is gonna dive a little bit more into the support center and some of the upcoming and current features that we have released. So over to you, Ash.
We have a question for you, mate.
Sorry about that.
Valentina asks, how do you manage the inventory? Are we going to have a report for that?
Yes, so the asset roll forward, the new asset roll forward reports that we are launching is basically what we're going to use to manage all of your inventory balances. So it's going to give you detail on a wallet/source level, as well as an asset level within each of your different sources. So essentially, as you track your month to month or quarter to quarter change in balances over the period, you can sort of see, okay, where has the biggest changes occurred, what sources, what assets, and then you could dive into that a little bit more with looking at the different accounts that you've mapped. So like what revenue streams drove these changes, things like that. Miguel, this is going to be a Q1 release, so you can expect these within the next couple of weeks. Super excited to bring that to you guys. So let's include inventory. Yes, so all the reports, or at least on the asset report side, for sure, it will include NFT inventory. What it will look like might be slightly different, but it will include those. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for their questions. Okay, we have one last one, and I'm going to throw it over to you, Ash. The last one is, what methodology will we be able to use? So you'll be able to use all of the main core methodologies, which are FIFO, LIFO, weighted average cost, and HIFO. Awesome. So thanks everybody for their questions. We're going to have another Q&A section at the end as well. So happy to take some more. Ash, over to you.
Cool. Oh, unmute. No, I'm good.
No,
Cool.
can hear you. Good.
Awesome. Thank you, Tremaine. So just going to dive back into the Help Center a little bit to show you some. So the Help Center has kind of been revamped, and it's very likely that it will be revamped again later this year. But overall, the way it's structured is just to give you a insight into the core value propositions of Cryptio, right? So a user manual to know how to do all of your automated labeling, contact identification, deep dive into the reports, audit ready, which will include documentation on one of our new features such as impairment and what's the other one? I think it was impairment. There's another one, slipped my mind. How do you troubleshoot? How do you solve some problems by yourself without having to reach out? And then our API reference doc. So we have an API, and with this API, you can do many things. So if you want to find out more about that, just click on these. Finally, we have this little button at the top here. And this is one of many ways that you can submit a request to Cryptio. If you submit your request via our chatbot down here, we'll populate some information for you, save you a bit of time. But this will just help us solve your issues or answer your question in the most timely manner. Cool. So that's the new Help Center. Regarding new features, so we'll be talking about our new NFT module, our DeFi module, our new accounting software integration with NetSuite, and impairments as well. So let's dive into it. So let's begin with the NFT module. So the first thing you probably notice of Cryptio is we have a brand new UI. And part of that new UI is now you can not only see your total value, your total portfolio value, but you can also see the total portfolio NFT value. And if you click into this button here, you'll see the list of all of your NFTs, the asset name, the collection, acquisition costs, market value, price valuation, and then your unrealized gains and losses. Now, one question that you guys probably have is how are these being priced? So we have three pricing methods. The first one is the last sale price. We also have the floor price, the current floor price of the collection. And then you can also set a custom NFT price for this asset. And it's interactive. And yeah, you can see all of your NFTs here. And this is also all of the transaction log is also in the reports. And when you go to the reports, you can filter on and off whether you want to include NFTs as part of your transaction histories or your realized gains and losses, etc. Cool. Now, from there, let's go to the DeFi module. So I'll go back to the dashboard shortly.
Ash, you have a couple quick pings on the NFT if you want to touch it before you.
I'll answer them right after this on the Q&A. And then, yeah, so we just finish it and then we'll do the Q&A. Cool. So bear with me. Thank you. So DeFi on the DeFi module. So the DeFi module shows you all of your open and closed positions. It shows you which protocols you're using, the type of DeFi activity you're engaging with, lending, staking, yield, LP, etc. What is currently claimable, what is your original deposit, and what is the total value. So like claimable and deposit. Now, if you click into these, you have a little bit more data that you can use. But what is quite interesting is for closed positions, like this one, you can see your realized P&L, the yield you generated, and yeah. This is also shown as a summary. So the entire DeFi module is summarized on the dashboard, which you can see here, where you can see your total deposits into DeFi protocols, the total amount claimable, total debt, realized P&L, and your unrealized P&L. And again, we'll answer all your questions at the end of this features deep dive. The next feature we're going to talk about is our new accounting software integration, NetSuite. This integration works exactly the same as Xero and QuickBooks. You connect to your NetSuite account, we'll pull your chart of accounts in, you map the same way you always do. So like assets to asset accounts, labels to P&L accounts, realized gains and losses, fees, etc. And you go to the transactions tab. Needs review. So this is your complete transaction history, but you want to go to needs review. As you go through the transaction lifecycle, you'll end up here, which is transactions that are ready to be synced. Select all of the transactions you want to be synced and click on this new little drop down here, where you have price transactions, reconcile ledger entries, and sync. So here you can sync these 15 transactions with NetSuite. When you click sync, all of the transactions will form manual journals and be posted into your NetSuite account in this format. And here you can see, your asset account and all of the metadata that's also pulled from Cryptio, such as contact, transaction hash, label, etc. But yeah, this is really cool. It's really exciting. We have loads of customers have been asking us for this, so it's good to finally have this in production. Now, quickly back to Tremaine to talk about our new impairment module.
Thank you, Ash. And thanks for showing off all those cool features. I don't know if everyone is as excited as I am to see the NFTs move around in circles, but yeah, the last sneak peek thing that we want to talk about today is our new impairment module. And this is something that we've been building for quite some time, and we just recently released it. It is currently feature flagged for enterprise clients, but I think it would be a really good opportunity here to sort of walk through how it works. The impairment module that we built is sort of focused on a couple of things. We look at it as a good way to go along with your monthly reconciliation process. If you do it monthly, the overall guidance is that it can be done at least annually, but recommended best practice is that you do check for impairments at least once a month. And in our module, we do give you complete flexibility to select what day in the period that might have had the lowest price point, say for your assets, to drive the impairment check. And there's going to be two aspects to this. The one that Ash has up right now is the UI for the impairment. So essentially what would happen here is, as you select different impairments, and the reason why we can't do it right now is because you have to lock your entire transaction history before you can, as sort of a safeguard before you run impairments. But here, essentially from a UI, you would select the impairment, select date that you'd want to run the impairment on, and the module will recalculate all of your cost basis for each of your assets on the day that you ran impairment by comparing what is your current acquisition cost basis to a potentially new price for impairment. So if it's higher, you get no impairment. If it's lower, it would calculate that for you and give you a snapshot here in the UI. Additionally, we will be giving a report to go along with this. And for this report, it's going to be very similar to the asset roll forward, where you'll be able to see on a wallet/sources level, as well as an asset level, what assets were impaired for the period, what were all the total previous impairments to that specific asset and or source in the past, and what is your new total impairment. And this is sort of something that we see working in conjunction with your asset roll forward and your monthly general ledgers to book as a separate journal entry to say, okay, we need to recognize an impairment loss for this period of X or Y or whatever the case may be. So this is something I know a lot of people have been asking for a really long time. So super excited that we can finally roll it out to you, even though likely from the new FASB guidance, this won't be relevant in a year or so, but we're happy to be able to bring it to you in the meantime.
Cool, perfect. Thanks, Jermaine. Now over to you guys. Do you have any questions? And I can answer the questions currently in the chat. So regarding for Joanne, like if you would talk both DeFi is available now for the NFT module. I believe it is currently in testing, so it will probably be March end of this quarter latest that we will probably launch it. What else questions do we have? Will I be able to see the status of my DeFi dashboard at any specific point in time, or current live balance? Yeah, great question. So that's one of the hardest challenges in crypto, right? Can I see historic on-chain like DeFi positions? It's something we're working on. It's definitely like exploration, but ultimately there's many methodologies that we could adopt, but choosing the right one and getting it right from the start is quite important, because at the end of the day, this is your accounting, audit, and reporting. But it is definitely the way we're going in terms of our roadmap, Luca. But yeah, great question. Will it generate one journal entry for each transaction? Christina, were you talking about the DeFi, or was it the DeFi one regarding will it generate one journal entry per transaction? NetSuite integration. Yes, so this one will generate one journal entry per transactions. But with our current beta testers from our client base, a lot of them require bulk uploads because of large transaction volumes. So that is also one way. We're aware of it, and we are working on it as well. No problem. Will the NFT module include reporting from start and also next iteration? No, I think it's actually part of this iteration. So it's on certain reports, and maybe what might come next iteration is expanded across more reports, but I've already seen it on, I think it's the realized gains and losses is one, possibly historical balance as well. But yeah, like you'll have it on some reports already. Any other questions, maybe on impairments or anything else? No. Is it in the pipeline to be able to slice top assets on the dashboard on the source/wallet level in addition to asset level? I don't believe it's in the pipeline, but I think that's good feedback, and we'll definitely take that, pass that to our product team. I think I see what you mean. What you're saying is you want to not just have a view of your entire portfolio, but not your entire portfolio, but actually have a portfolio overview of a certain wallet, or just focus on a certain asset, right? So yeah, we will pass that to, yeah, cool. So we'll pass that to our product team. Thanks for the feedback. Any other questions? No? Okay. So before we close, I just wanted to bring your attention to something that is quite interesting, and it's a really good read actually. So we have the Counting Crypto blog series, which was 3 articles written by our CTO on the actual difficulty and kind of like an insight how we are actually building Cryptio, so bringing transparency into the tech behind just the UI. These 3 articles are fantastic. Definitely go have a read of them. All of these articles are in our blog, along with a lot of other great articles. We'll send this deck around at the end of the the end of the webinar, so you have access to it if you want to access the blocks directly from here. But yeah, go check these out. They're great. Cool. Finally, we just launched our Cryptio LinkedIn newsletter. Within, I think, like 1 or 2 days, we had over 1,000 subscribers. Within this monthly newsletter, you'll have updates on not only Cryptio, but also on the accounting, tax, and audit regulations and the landscapes that has come out. So it's kind of like your one place you can go to keep up to date on everything crypto, accounting, tax, and audit, as well as Cryptio in terms of features and product developments. But yeah, thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it. And again, this is our first webinar, so free to give us some feedback as well. Thank you everyone for joining. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.